The politics of Ethiopia are the activities associated with the governance of Ethiopia. The government is structured as a federal parliamentary republic with both a president and prime minister. The government of Ethiopia is structured in the form of a federal parliamentary republic, whereby the prime minister is the head of government. Executive power is exercised by the government while legislative power is vested in the parliament. The judiciary is more or less independent of the executive and the legislature. There are 10 ethnically based administrative regions and 2 self-governing administrations. The capital city Addis Ababa and Addis. The President of Ethiopia is elected by the House of People's Representatives for a 6-year term. The Prime Minister is chosen by the Parliament. The Prime Minister is designated by the party in power following legislative elections. The Council of Ministers, according to the 1995 Constitution, is comprised by the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Ministers, various ministers and other members as determined and approved by the House of People's Representatives. At the current time, this includes the 20 members of Council of Ministers. The Federal Parliamentary Assembly has 2 chambers. The Council of People's Representatives with 547 members, elected for 5-year terms in single-seat constituencies, and the Council of the Federation with 110 members, 1 for each nationality, and 1 additional representative for each 1 million of its population, designated by the regional councils, which may elect them themselves or through popular elections. The President and Vice President of the Federal Supreme Court are recommended by the Prime Minister and appointed by the House of People's Representatives. For other federal judges, the Prime Minister submits candidates selected by the Federal Judicial Administrative Council to the People's Representatives for appointment. In May 1991, a coalition of rebel forces under the name Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, Amhara National Democratic Movement and others established the Transitional Government of Ethiopia, which consisted of an 87-member Council of Representatives guided by a national charter that functioned as a transitional constitution. Since 1991, Ethiopia has established warm relations with the United States and Western Europe and has sought substantial economic aid from Western countries in the World Bank. In June 1992, the OLF withdrew from the government. In March 1993, members of the Southern Ethiopia People's Democratic Coalition left the government. The Eritrean People's Liberation Front, an ally in the fight against the Mengistu regime, assumed control of Eritrea and established a provisional government. Eritrea achieved full independence on May 24, 1993. President Meles Zenawi and members of the TGE pledged to oversee the formation of a multi-party democracy. The first election for Ethiopia's 547-member Constituent Assembly was held in June 1994. This assembly adopted the Constitution of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia in December 1994. The elections for Ethiopia's first popularly chosen national parliament and regional legislatures were held in May and June 1995. Most opposition parties chose to boycott these elections. There was a landslide victory for the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front. International and non-governmental observers concluded that opposition parties would have been able to participate had they chosen to do so. The government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia was installed in August 1995. The first president was Negasso Gidada. The EPRDF-led government of Prime Minister Meles has promoted a policy of ethnic federalism, seemingly devolving significant powers to regional, ethnically based authorities. Ethiopia today has 9 semi-autonomous regions of Ethiopia that have the power to raise and spend their own revenues. In 2004, the government began a resettlement initiative to move more than 2 million people away from the arid highlands of the east, proposing that these resettlements would reduce food shortages. The incumbent president is Mulatu Teshome and has been at that position since October 2013. The ruling party, EPRDF, was declared a winner by the election board in 2000. And then again in 2005 amidst protests and riots that led to the death of many Ethiopians. Hundreds of political leaders, some of whom were elected to parliamentary positions, were arrested in connection with these protests. As of February 2006, hundreds of politicians remained in custody, facing trial in March. About 119 people are currently facing trial, including journalists for defamation and opposition party leaders for treason. Human rights organizations have raised concerns over the well-being of some of these prisoners. However, 8,000 prisoners have already been freed. Concerns about the implications of these trials for the freedom of the press have also been raised.